Thank you for buying a Brother sewing machine. This DVD is designed to give you an overview of the machine operation in line with the operation manual. Please note that some descriptions may not apply to the specifications of your model. Now let's get the machine ready for use. Insert the foot controller plug into the jack on the right side of the machine. Connect the power supply plug into a wall outlet. Turn the main power switch on. The sewing lamp comes on when the machine is turned on. Now let's take a look at how to set the bobbin winder and the lower thread. Only use the bobbin that has been designed for this sewing machine. Use of bobbins from older models may cause injury or damage to the machine. Turn the main power switch on. Then place the bobbin on bobbin winder shaft so that the spring on the shaft fits into the notch of the bobbin. Slide the bobbin winder shaft to the right until it clicks. Slightly lift the spool pin and then remove the spool cap. Fully insert the spool of thread for the bobbin onto the spool pin so that the thread unwinds to the front at the bottom, and slide the spool cap onto the spool pin as far as possible. Hold the thread from the spool with both hands and hook it onto thread guide A. While holding the thread with your right hand, use your left hand to pull the thread straight towards you and hook it onto thread guide B. Pass the thread under the hook of the bobbin winding thread guide and then wind the thread counterclockwise between the pretension discs and pull it to the right. Wind the thread clockwise around the bobbin several times and pass it through the slit on the bobbin winder seat to cut the free end of the thread. Wind the thread by pressing the foot controller down fully. When the bobbin is full, the bobbin starts to turn slowly. Take your foot off the foot controller to stop the machine. Cut the thread with a pair of scissors. Slide the bobbin winder shaft to the left and remove the bobbin. First, turn the main power switch off before setting the lower thread. Raise the needle by turning the hand wheel toward you and raise the presser foot lever. The position is correct when the mark on the hand wheel points directly up. Remove the bobbin cover by sliding it toward you and put the bobbin in so that the thread comes out from the left side. Push the bobbin down lightly with your right hand and then pass the thread through the slit with your left hand. Pull the thread toward you to cut excess thread. Replace the bobbin cover. Now you have completed the setting of the lower thread. Now let's take a look at how to pass the upper thread of your machine. Ensure that the main power switch is off and the presser foot lever is raised. Raise the needle by turning the hand wheel toward you. Slightly lift the spool pin and then remove the spool cap. Fully insert the spool of thread for the bobbin onto the spool pin so that the thread unwinds to the front at the bottom, and slide the spool cap onto the spool pin as far as possible. Hold the thread from the spool with both hands and hook it onto thread guide A. While holding the thread with your right hand, use your left hand to pull the thread straight towards you and hook it onto thread guide B. Hold the thread with your right hand and use your left hand to feed it along the groove guide following the numbers. Make sure you feed the thread through the thread take-up lever from right to left. Hook the thread on the needle holder and lower the presser foot. While lowering the needle threader lever slightly, hook the thread onto the guide. Turn the needle threader lever toward the back of the machine and the hook passes through the eye of the needle. Pass the thread through the hook. Holding the thread lightly, turn the needle threader lever toward you slowly and the hook will pull the thread through the needle. Draw the end of the thread from the needle's eye under the presser foot and pull about 5 centimeters or 2 inches of thread toward the rear of the machine. Now the upper thread is set. Now let's start sewing. Turn the main power switch on. Set the pattern selection dial to straight stitch sewing. Raise the needle and lift the presser foot to set the fabric. Pass the thread under the presser foot. While holding the thread and the fabric with your left hand, turn the hand wheel toward you to lower the needle into the fabric and lower the presser foot lever. When you sew the fabric, adjust the speed with the foot controller. To finish sewing, release your foot from the foot controller to stop the machine, and then raise the needle by turning the hand wheel toward you. Raise the presser foot, pull out the fabric, and then cut the threads with the thread cutter that is found on the left side of the machine. To select stretch stitch pattern, first set the stitch length dial to SS. Then select a pattern by turning the pattern selection dial in either direction. Let's try reverse sewing. To sew the fabric in reverse, lower the needle into the starting point of stitching and lower the presser foot. Start the machine slowly, and when you have sewn a few stitches, stop the machine. Press the reverse sewing lever and hold it to sew reverse stitches until you return to the starting point. When you have returned to the starting point, take your finger off the reverse sewing lever and sew forward again. You can reverse sew for reinforcement at the end of sewing as well by stopping the machine and pressing the reverse sewing lever. Now let's check the thread tension. The tension of the thread depends on the type of fabric or thread. Try sewing with a piece of the fabric you are going to use and adjust the tension of the thread. Let's take a look at how to adjust stitch length and width. You can adjust the stitch length as necessary. To adjust the stitch length, use the stitch length dial. The higher the number, the longer the stitch. The lower the number, the shorter the stitch. You can also adjust the stitch width of stitch patterns. To adjust the stitch width, use the stitch width dial. The higher the number, the wider the stitch. The lower the number, the narrower the stitch. After adjusting the stitch width, slowly turn the hand wheel toward you and check that the needle does not touch the presser foot. Let's use the satin stitch. Turn the pattern selection dial to the zigzag stitch. Set the stitch length dial between F through 1 to adjust. Set the dial to the desired stitch length. Raise the presser foot, set the fabric and start sewing. Let's sew a buttonhole. First, use tailor's chalk to mark the position and length of the buttonhole on the fabric. To sew the buttonhole, change the foot to the buttonhole foot A. To replace the presser foot, raise the needle by turning the hand wheel toward you and turn the main power switch off. Raise the presser foot lever and press the black button at the back of the holder to remove the presser foot. Attach the buttonhole foot, placing a button on it. Turn the main power switch on. Set the stitch length dial to F through 1.5. Set the stitch width dial to 3 through 5. Set the pattern selection dial to 1. Pass the upper thread into the hole of the presser foot. Align the red mark on the presser foot with the front side of the marking on the fabric and lower the presser foot lever. Pull down the buttonhole lever as far as possible. Push the lever back. While lightly holding the upper thread with your left hand, turn the hand wheel toward you to lower the needle into the fabric and start sewing. Cut the thread slightly longer. Pull through the upper thread to the reverse side. Fraying can be prevented by tying a knot. Let's take a look at how to sew buttons. To sew a button, you need to use the button sewing foot M. First, measure the distance between the buttonholes. Set the pattern selection dial to the zigzag stitch and set the stitch width dial to the length of the buttonhole. Next, the feeder must be lowered so that the garment will not be fed. Turn the main power switch off. Pull the flatbed attachment to the left and remove it. Then slide the feed dog position switch to the right to lower the feeder. Attach the button sewing foot. Turn the main power switch on. Set a button between the button sewing foot and the fabric. Check the hole length by turning the hand wheel toward you. Start the machine and sew the fabric. To prevent the threads from loosening, bring the upper thread into the back of the fabric and tie it with the lower thread. Now let's take a look at the zipper insertion method. For zipper insertion, use zipper foot I. Select straight stitch and set the stitch width dial to the center needle position. To sew the left side of a zipper, set the presser foot on the right side pin. Let's take a look at how to change the needle and maintenance. Make sure to turn the main power switch off before you change the needle. Raise the needle to its highest position by turning the hand wheel toward you. Remove the presser foot and lower the presser foot lever. Hold the needle with your left hand. Loosen the needle clamp screw with the accessory screwdriver in your right hand and remove the needle. With the flat side of the new needle toward the rear of the machine, insert the needle until it touches the needle stopper. Hold the needle with your left hand and secure the needle clamp screw with a screwdriver. Make sure you switch the machine off before you clean it. With the presser foot, the needle and the presser foot holder removed. Remove the clamp screws and the needle plate. Grasp the bobbin case and pull it out. Use cleaning brushes or vacuum cleaners to remove any dust from the race and its surrounding area. Return the bobbin case to its original position. Make sure that the projection of the bobbin case and the tension adjusting spring of the race are aligned. Enjoy sewing with your brother machine.